How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. Urinal etiquette is an important part of a guy's life. Imagine going to an interview and in between sessions, you run into some guy in the bathroom. You pick the wrong stall and the guy gets offended, and that is the next person that's going to interview you. I can tell you that I've interviewed people before, and if I went to the restroom in between sessions and the candidate goes up to the wrong stall and in fact puts their hand behind my back because I've interviewed them already, this will give off a really bad vibe to me, and it would negatively affect their ability to get that job. Let's go through some simple ground rules first. When you're in the stall or when someone else is doing their business, try not to talk to them. You should try to limit your communication until perhaps outside of the restroom. Some people's comfort level is a little different. For me, I prefer not to talk to anyone while I'm doing my business. The second thing is when you're doing your business, you should definitely look only forward. You may look down a little bit just to check your aim, but if there's someone next to you, you should definitely not look a little bit to their side at all, because they would think that you're trying to look at their crown jewels or something. The third thing is never pull down your pants to use a urinal. I've seen some of this in grade school perhaps, and sometimes in the adult world actually. No one really wants to see other people's underpants, so it's best to keep your pants on. That's what the fly is for. You zip down their fly so you can do your business. Number 4 is try not to make any sounds at all. Don't make side sounds, don't whistle or make any noise at all while you're doing your business. It just kind of sounds weird. The 5th thing is if you happen to get stuck in adjacent urinals and you know the person really well next to you, never ever extend your hand over and pat them on their back while they're doing their business. In fact, don't do any type of physical contact at all. Only do your business, don't talk, look straight forward, and don't touch. With those ground rules set, let's go through a few scenarios. Here's a typical 3-stall restroom and the entrance is on the left. Where do you think you should use the urinal? The correct answer is either the first one or the last one over here. You never want to take the middle one, because if someone else happens to come in, then they would be forced to use one that's next to you. Now to me, the first one is generally dirtier, so I would prefer the third one actually. This would be the most preferred urinal for most people. Now let's say you walk into a restroom and you have this inconsiderate guy that took up the middle urinal, so that no matter what you pick, you cannot avoid being right adjacent to this person. The proper thing to do in this case is that you can go and use one of these toilet stalls instead. You can either use this one or the farthest one. This is just fine. However, if these are taken, you can actually go and squeeze in here if you are comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable with it, you're perfectly okay just waiting around here until they're done, and then you can go and use the first or the last one. To me, I typically would not wait around because it's just too much waste of a time. I would just go and park myself probably in this one, because this first one is usually for kids. Here's a larger restroom where there's actually 5 urinals. You enter the restroom and you see a reasonable guy at the first stall. Perfectly okay. Now, which one of these stalls should you pick? Definitely not the second one, because this is the weirdest thing you can do. Go up right adjacent to this person because you have all these other ones to choose from. Now, typically you want the greatest distance from anybody else while you're using the urinal. So here, in this case, you would pick either stall 5, or it's just as fine to try and use one of these stalls over here. Picking the 4th stall is acceptable, however, you make no room left for someone else that comes in. A new guy that comes in will not be able to pick a stall that's not adjacent with anybody else. So in this case, either the 3rd stall or the 5th stall would be perfectly acceptable. However, the 5th stall is preferred. You walk into the restroom this time and the 1st stall is taken up by a regular guy. However, the 5th position is taken up by this muscle guy, which is really big. In this case, it's a little bit weird to go next to the person over here, so it's perfectly acceptable to pick the middle stall over here, which gives you 1 space between each person. Now you have to know, these rules apply whether or not there's a divider between these urinals. Now this time, let's say you walk into the restroom and the middle stall is actually out of order. Would you take the second one or the 4th one? The argument here is that you can either wait or take the second stall, because people generally prefer not to stand next to the muscly guy because they are typically really tall and then they might be able to see your privacy. So picking the second stall actually maximizes your privacy. Here's something a bit more complicated. If there's a guy at the 1st stall and the muscly guy is at the 4th stall, which stall do you pick? You can just as well pick the stalls instead of the urinals. However, if the stalls are taken already, which would you pick? In this case, it depends on how big the muscly guy is at the fourth stall. If it's really big like Arnold Schwarzenegger, then perhaps you do not want to go on the third or the fifth, which only leaves you to having the second stall. Yes, it's a little bit weird, but you're trying to avoid this muscly guy over here. One more time, you walk into a restroom and you see some guy at the second stall and some guy at the fourth stall. Now, who started this craziness? No one is going to find out. It's kind of like the guy that parked somewhere a little bit off, and then the next guy parked a little bit more off, and by the time you're at like the fifth stall, someone is parking between two spaces. Over here, obviously, you don't want the third stall because that means you have to be adjacent to two different guys. This is double the privacy that you're losing. Now, all this is assuming these bathroom stalls are taken already. Then that means you should really take the first one over here, but because you're next to someone, you should actually turn a little bit away so that you gain a little bit more privacy. When you turn away, you kind of like block the view so that they can't really see your, thing. Here's the last example. You walk into a restroom, you got the first, third, and fifth stall all taken up. The fifth stall is taken up by a really big guy. It can be a chubby guy or a really muscular guy or a really tall guy. The thing to do here, of course, in the order of importance is, of course, use the bathroom stall first as your first priority. If those aren't available, most likely I would just pick one of the urinals, but which one do you pick here? Of course, you avoid the muscular guy over here, so therefore you need to squeeze in between these two guys, although really not preferred. You just kind of go and do your thing over here. Make sure you look straight, and really this is probably the lowest point you can get going into a restroom that is positioned this way. I hope you guys enjoyed this urinal etiquette. It's actually a lot more important than you think, because if you do the wrong thing in front of the wrong person, it can be very detrimental to your career or whatever you're trying to do. Don't forget to give me a like on this video, comment down below. Let me know if there's an open spot between two guys. Would you just wait, or would you use the position in between? If you're interested in supporting this channel, don't forget to check out my Audible link down in the video description below, where you can get a free audiobook, likely in urinal etiquette. And if you don't like this audiobook or the subscription service, you can cancel it before the subscription expires, and you don't have to pay a thing, and you can still keep the audiobook and help benefit this channel. I also have a Patreon link over here where you can support my channel directly, and I give various perks for different levels of contribution. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to my channel over here and click that bell icon next to the subscribe button so you get new notification whenever I upload a brand new video. Thanks for watching.